Well, it's been a little bit since I've watched some of this stuff. And some of the stuff I couldn't even get through, so this might be terrible or great. We'll see.
We'll see. Hi, I'm Sydney,
And I'm Jake.
and you're listening to Two for the Matinee.
And in this week's episode, we'll be talking about Chimes of Midnight and Thief.
So, spoiler warning. Some of these movies are going to be really spoiled.
Before we get into that, have you seen the new Batman trailer?
Yes, I have.
I think Robert Pattinson as Batman is ridiculous.
I'm withholding judgment because the movie's not finished yet. And so that was kind of a little teaser trailer. So I'm going to withhold my judgment till we get some more trailers, and then I'll see the movie, and then I will make a definitive decision. But I'm not anti-Pattinson.
I remember when they announced that Ben Affleck was going to be Batman, and that morning I happened to walk into a Starbucks and I just hear the barista just irate about this decision. He was very upset. He said he wasn't going to watch the new Batman. Batman's played by Ben Affleck. And I thought I actually liked Ben Affleck as Batman because he was, and maybe it's because Ben's an alcoholic in real life, but he was kind of like the old, jaded, a little bit over the hill, maybe Batman. I thought he did a good job in that role. Kind of over the whole thing almost. He had this, which I guess he was in real life. He didn't really enjoy his Batman experience, but I liked Affleck in that role. I know you don't like Affleck overall, so
I was gonna say we've discussed at length my dislike of Ben Affleck's acting, quote unquote acting. So I was not a fan of his Batman.
Well, my issue with the Pattinson Batman, it's nothing specific to the trailer. It's the fact that I guess he refused to work out, and he's like a skinny hipster Batman.
Yeah, I read that.
And I thought that was kind of weird. I guess
mean,
that's an artistic choice.
That is a choice, and we'll see how it plays out.
But I mean, Batman's supposed to kick ass. And I mean, this was one of my problems with Wonder Woman. And, that movie was hailed as, I guess, like a feminist or like a progressive superhero movie. But if you look at the, what are they called? Amazonians?
Mm-hmm.
So they got a bunch of these like CrossFit ladies who actually do work out to be extras. And I listened to an interview with one of them. What's her name? Brooke. I forget her last name. She's got a pretty big following on social media. I mean, this lady's jacked. And she was talking about how like Zack Snyder, who produced it, like he wanted her and some of these other ladies in that movie, but the director, who's a woman, was against Wonder Woman being bulky. And I'm like, one of her powers is super strength. She's supposed to be muscular. Instead, we got Gal Gadot, who's like just looks like you're like a model, supposed to be super strong. And I feel like in with all the male superheroes, they make sure that they like portray strength through their physical appearance. I've always found it strange that female superheroes don't look like they're strong.
Okay, that is true. Because I'm thinking in my mind of all the female superheroes, and we have Wonder Woman, Black Widow, Okoye. She looks physically strong from Black Panther. But is she a superhero? Like, what are we calling superhero though? That's the thing. Are we just saying people in superhero movies or actual like Captain Marvel superheroes?
I mean, any hero is like if they're a dude, they're pretty jacked, except for maybe Spider-Man. But like all the other ones, they look like they have muscle. Now we could debate about whether that's appropriate or not, but I feel like it's a strange, it's like off balance. Like I think it has to do with how muscular women are still perceived.
Yeah, yeah, you're
It's just
right.
it's disappointing. I think it's disappointing. I don't
But
know.
I mean, you can be muscular and not super jacked. So are we saying that the women are supposed to be super jacked like the men?
Jack to the gills.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends on how many vitamins they want to take. But
You know, you look at like Aquaman, Jason Momoa. I mean, that's crazy physical fitness.
well, I'm just talking about even like sort of the nerdy, the actors who played the nerds, like Chris Pratt or
Mm.
Kumail
Oh
Nanjiani, who's
yeah, or Paul Rudd got really jacked for Ant-Man.
right. Or I mean, even Christian Bale until Batman, I don't think he was like very physically impressive in any roles.
That's true.
So why couldn't Brie Olson get a personal trainer and like, look like she can kick
Well, Brie Larson
or
did have
Larson.
a personal trainer because she works out all the time. I follow her on Instagram.
Well, whatever she was doing. They should just do CrossFit. That seems to work well for women, I think, in terms of like looking like they lift. Anyway, so that's my beef with Robert Pattinson. But if we're gonna start this new trend of skinny superheroes. I guess that's where we're at now.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I think the beefing up is kind of over, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, maybe.
Really, does Captain America really need to beef up? I mean, he
Well,
has
he
super
literally does actually.
I'm
Like, he's
gonna
the
say he
one
has
superhero.
the super strength.
Yeah, well, he took the super serum. He was a
Right,
scrawny
that's
little
true.
guy.
That's
Yeah, and
true.
the same for the Hulk.
Those are the
Those two.
only two that legitimate Captain America and the Hulk are legitimately the only two that have to have muscle on them. Iron Man has the freaking suit. He doesn't
Yeah, he
he
doesn't need
doesn't
to.
need that. Ant-Man doesn't need to because he's got like those little particle power things.
But yeah, we'll see how this turns out. I guess the villain is Riddler.
Yeah. Is it Paul
Which
Dano?
is he the Riddler?
Is Paul Dano the Riddler? I think so.
Um, yeah, and he's. I've always thought he can be an interesting villain if taken seriously. Yeah, so that was my takeaway from that trailer.
Well,
And
we'll revisit it once it hits video on demand because that's where it's going.
well, so did we talk about how Tenet was delayed?
I
The
can't
uh, the
remember.
Christopher Nolan movie, but I'm on the Music Box mailing list and they're showing it. So I don't know if they're doing like limited releases in some theaters or how it's working, but yeah, they're showing it. So I don't know. I might check it out. So maybe we'll see the same thing with some of these other bigger movies. They'll be doing limited releases for a while. I don't know.
Maybe I know that you can't have full. I mean, the theaters you can have every other seat, and then the row in front and the row behind have to be empty. So it's not going to be. I mean, how many showings
Yeah.
are they going to have to do a day to make up money? Every theater is going to have to show Tenant.
So I'd be interested to see what kind of money the Music Box is going to be making on this, and I'm going to try to go, so I'll be able to report on the seating arrangement
Okay.
because I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of distancing, but it's like is it state by state or
I
because
don't know. I think it might be.
I finished season 1 of Rome, so now I can talk about it.
Okay. What do you think? Did it hold up?
I think it does. I mean, I think some of the cinematography looks a little dated, obviously, and it doesn't look as slick as some of the newer shows. But I still think it's great, and it's got like if people enjoy the intrigue of Game of Thrones or House of Cards, like I think it does a good job of like all the scheming and all the back and forth and ups and downs of all the characters. Yeah, I still like it. I think it looks great. They did a pretty good job of recreating ancient Rome. I mean, some of the CGI is pretty obvious, but nonetheless, it was a great show.
I loved Atia. She was my favorite.
Yeah, she's like Cersei. She's so conniving and evil.
Exactly. She's like a proto Cersei.
But like the bromance between Polo and Varenas is great. What's his name? Mark Anthony is good. I mean, all the characters are great.
Are you going to watch season 2?
Haven't decided yet. I kind of want to. Well, I kind of don't because I remember I didn't like it, but I also remember there are parts of it that I enjoyed. So I probably will. I think it's only like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
It was shorter. But one of the producers is John Milius, if you know who that is.
And director?
Yeah, well, he directed Conan, but he wrote so many. He wrote Apocalypse Now. I think he may have written the screenplay for Godfather. I mean, he's like very prolific. It's like he's one of those guys, like people don't really know his name, but he's written a lot of very famous movies.
Oh, he was in that documentary you were telling me about. The last action heroes.
No. There's another documentary specifically about him that I want to watch.
Oh, you haven't watched it yet?
No, I keep forgetting. And there's also on Netflix, there's a documentary about this French soccer player, Anelka. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, yeah, I do.
And I vaguely remember there was like that whole mutiny at the World Cup of the French team. Do you remember that? And they I think they ended up like firing their coach during the World Cup, and it had something to do with him. And so I was watching the trailer for it on Netflix. I'm like, I need to watch this because I kind of remember this, but it looks super interesting. But I guess he was involved. He was part of the issue that led to like the revolt of the players against the coach. So that's on my list.
I might check that out. I'm a fan of the football.
Well, if you're a fan of the football, do you have Apple TV?
I can't get any more streaming services.
Well, we have a year, I think a year's free trial because of like a new phone contract. So we started watching the show called Ted Lasso, and
I've seen the trailers.
Yeah, and it's really grown on me. I like it a lot. So it stars Jason Sudeikis as a Division II American football coach who gets hired to manage a mid-table Premiership League team of European football because the current owner of the team wants to run the team into the ground as revenge for her ex-husband philandering in public, basically, and humiliating her. And Sudeikis' character, like, I feel like it could have gone either way. They could have done like sort of a Danny McBride, Eastbound and Down type of guy, but they went in the opposite direction. He's like super nice, and he's got all this folksy wisdom that ends up working. And, you know, everyone's against him. The players don't believe in him, but he starts like winning people over, and it's just really sweet. And it's nice watching something sweet.
I agree. Like Shrill. I think Shrill is sweet.
I did watch the first episode of that.
I think it's good-natured and it's like positive, you know?
Yeah, I don't think I got far enough into it to reach that point because the first episode is pretty sad.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's sort of one of those things that's sort of tinged with a little bit of sadness, but a lot of joy too. So I really like it.
Well, we're currently looking for a half-hour comedy to watch during lunch. Because we used to watch Cheers and Magnum PI, but those got pulled. Then we watched The British Office. We're done with that. So I want something else. I don't know and I don't want it to be like too weird. Can you recommend anything? It's like a few seasons long.
I told you to watch W1A. Is that even still on Netflix?
W1A?
Yeah.
Which one is that?
It's like quirky, and they're like 27 minutes, and it's only like 2 seasons of like 10 episodes.
What is that about?
It's about the people in the what's their office called? The Standards and whatever office at the BBC.
All right.
But it's a comedy. I really enjoy it. I think it's very quirky.
That I forgot about it. I'll look it up, see if it's still on.
See if it's still on there because it's short and sweet and funny.
Yeah, that's what I want during my lunch.
It's still on there. I just looked it up.
All right, cool. I will check it out tomorrow.
Let's see.
Because we have been watching Gilmore Girls too.
Yeah, that doesn't hold up as well, I don't think.
Well, I never watched it religiously. I'd catch an episode here and there. And sometimes I'm surprised by how it does hold up, but then other times I'm not.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's hard to, like, for me, it's hard to take those characters in large doses. It's like, I get it, you're quirky.
Yeah, they become cringy. They become cringy after a little bit. Like, if you watch 4 episodes, like, I can't watch these people anymore.
Yeah, they're too quippy. It's like, we get it. You're both Dharmas. Do you remember that episode of Family Guy? It was like an early episode from one of the first or second season, where they like somebody's watching Dharma and Greg on TV, and it's Dharma. She's like standing on the table, and she's like, "Look, Greg, I'm standing on the table.
Aren't I a crazy girl, crazy lady?" Yeah, and he's like, "We get it, Dharma." I do remember that.
Yeah, and I'm like, that really hits the nail on the head. All right. So before we get into our two main features, do you want to talk about RKO and Me and Orson Welles?
I did not get to Me and Orson Welles, but I did watch RKO 281.
Well, I was just going to say that I watched about an hour of Me and Orson Welles, and then I couldn't finish it because I was so bored, and it just did nothing for me. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, good. I don't feel like I wasted my life trying to watch that.
Yeah, it was unnecessary.
Okay, good. But I found RKO 281 to be really kind of boring. And I thought, I mean, this is a very intriguing story with an intriguing personality. And it was very remedial, kind of movie of the weekish.
Yeah, I agree.
And kind of just very surface level and storytelling.
So I agree with all of that. And I think HBO has come a long way since then in terms of their movie making.
Yeah, because I think that was 1999, 98.
Yeah. And there are two things that kept me going with that movie. One is like I obviously knew Citizen Kane got made, but I didn't know how the situation with Hearst got resolved. So just curiosity to see how that would play out kept me going. And then I haven't looked up Liev Schreiber's filmography, but I'm guessing this is one of his like first movies, and it really showed. But what kept me going was I thought Roy Scheider was so good in this movie, and when they were together on screen, it was like such a difference.
Yes, I agree. But I feel like it was very glossy, or wanted to be very glossy and old Hollywoody, but didn't really get it, the sort of real drama of the story. And I don't know, I just saw that the character, I mean, we know Orson Welles. I mean, most people do.
Well, that's the thing. Do we know? I felt like they weren't committing to like defining him. Like I didn't get a good picture. Was he actually selfish, or did he actually care about these people? I felt like they were trying to like play it every way.
That's true.
So I felt like, I mean, I don't know Orson Welles, but I don't feel like I have a better idea of Orson Welles.
Wouldn't it have been such an interesting maybe framing device is to have people tell the story of how the movie got made the way that they tell the story of Charles Foster Kane?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be an interesting artistic decision for sure.
Right? To go in and have like the movie producer who was on his side tell his part of the story, or with some of the actors, and then, you know, the screenwriter who kind of got shafted, Mankiewicz, like, you know, tell his side. I think that would have been so much more interesting.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I would have at least appreciated the effort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This was just very like bland and by the book.
Yeah, I watched it because I'm an Orson Welles fan, and I just wanted to see how they portrayed him on screen. And I don't think Liev Schreiber was bad. I just think he was inexperienced.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think he's come a long way, but you could tell that he was pretty fresh.
Yeah. And so this is like 1998. Remember that movie? He played Reese Witherspoon's boyfriend in that movie Twilight with Paul Newman.
Well, I don't remember him being the boyfriend, but
he was the boyfriend that he rescued her from Mexico from that boyfriend.
Okay.
Liev Schreiber.
Yeah. So that was like, around the same time, right?
Yeah. I think it was like a year prior that was released. So maybe 2 years prior. But you can tell his acting chops have improved greatly.
So in 1941, Orson Welles was 26, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that actually struck me about Me and Orson Welles is that, so it takes place in 1937, and it's about Mercury Theater's production of Julius Caesar, Connection to Rome. And so he's supposed to be, 22 in 1937?
Yeah.
But the guy they have playing him is like, he looks like he's 40.
I actually looked it up when you told me about the movie, and to see who was playing Orson Welles. I'm like, he looks really old.
And he was heavier too.
Yeah, he wasn't heavy when he was that young.
But at least with that movie, for the hour that I saw, they did sort of pick a side. They made him very full of himself, but with a sense of humor. And I kind of did enjoy that part.
Well, I watched a documentary about him, and people who knew him when he was like a kid and in prep school were just like, yeah, he was very socially awkward. Didn't really.
I bet he got bullied.
Well, he just was like the kid who was like 7 years old quoting Shakespeare. Nobody got him, you know? People said he was kind of like really kind of aloof and didn't really do well with social cues from other people. He didn't get the social cues.
So we're thinking he was on the spectrum? Maybe. Or was he like one of those like 12-year-old kids that goes to med school?
I think, well, you know, he got he got a scholarship to Harvard, but he hated school so much and he didn't want to go to Harvard. So he went over to Ireland, told them he was 18. He wasn't 18, and said that he was a leading actor in the States and that they need to make him the leading man of their theater company. And they did.
I mean, good for him, but who are these people who are like, yep, we believe you. No need to check that.
Yeah, right. I think he's just sort of the daring arrogance of sort of youth and having complete confidence in one's possible maybe abilities, you know?
No, that's impressive.
Yeah. And so I think that he had a hard time. I don't know. I have this book, Orson Welles, right here by Simon Callow, who we know from Bedrooms and Hallways, who has written, I think he's writing the 4th installment of his biography of Orson Welles.
Christ. I mean, that's
he's been doing it for like 20 years. I think he's been working on these books, 25 years. This is the last volume.
Wow. Are you going to read them all?
I'm going to try. I haven't started this one yet. So I don't really know. I want to get into his childhood. I find him just so fascinating. I don't think they don't make people like him anymore.
I mean, I don't know if there's anyone that I could read 4 volumes about. I don't think anyone's that interesting. I don't know. At the end of the day, people are people.
Yeah.
I mean, I read Arnold's autobiography, and I mean, his life is super interesting, but I didn't need 4 volumes.
Yeah, I mean, there are other biographies I could have picked, but I ended up picking this one because it was the cheapest used biography on Amazon.
Because no one wants to read it. But maybe it's the best.
I don't know. But speaking of Orson Welles, let's dig in.
Okay, I have to preface this discussion. So This was my journey. I start Chimes at midnight. I'm like, oh, Harry Saltzman produced it. Are you familiar with Harry Saltzman?
No, fill me in.
He produced every James Bond until like one of the late ones with Roger Moore.
Okay.
So there was 2 producers, Harry Saltzman and Albert Broccoli. Cubby Broccoli is his name.
Yeah.
And so they produced all of them starting from Dr. No, and then around like Moonraker or something, Saltzman had financial problems. So he sold his half of the rights to Cubby. And so Cubby, and then like his kids went on to produce the rest. But yeah, he was involved with most of the Bonds. So I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then I started, I got into it, and like 5 minutes into it, I'm like, I'm not doing Shakespeare. Sorry. So I stopped, and then I watched the Ambersons instead.
Okay. Well, let me tell you my journey with Chimes of Midnight. So I turned it on, and then I said, oh, crap. This is going to be painful.
I'm not alone.
Right. This is going to be painful, but I owe it to Orson. So over the course of the next 5 days.
Maybe I should have done that, like in 20-minute increments.
Yeah, I watched this movie, and yeah, there's some problems, but it's extremely low budget. He was kind of scraping together money here and there, didn't have money for sets and costumes and all that. So I get that. But with what he had visually, if you turn the sound down and just look at some of the shots, it's pretty, it's beautiful. And there's a battle scene, the Battle of Shrewsbury, that he stages with only 100 extras, but it's done in such a way that it looks like he has thousands of people fighting. And it's a 10-minute battle scene. And that was the highlight of the movie. But it was painful to watch this movie. Oh, it was so painful.
Was it because it was Shakespeare?
It was because I couldn't figure out how to turn the closed captioning on. I think it would have made my life a little bit easier because he mumbles a lot. Like he says his lines, but then they kind of go into a mumble, and then other people kind of mumble. Maybe that's a sound issue. I don't know. And so it was really hard to follow along. and that made it very difficult to watch.
Well, I will say in the 5 or so minutes of the movie that I saw, I mean, visually it was impressive. Like even
Right.
those early shots, I'm like, this is great. But I was traumatized by Shakespeare. Like
You were personally offended by Shakespeare.
not offended, traumatized. Because so I started reading Shakespeare in high school, obviously freshman year, and we'd have these like quizzes where I tried to read what I was assigned, and we'd have these quizzes where like one column would be quotes from like Romeo and Juliet in Shakespeare speak, and then there's a column to the right of that where we had to paraphrase what he said. And to this day, I have no idea what he's talking about. I have like Shakespeare dyslexia. I don't know what it is. Maybe like someone needs to teach me how to understand what he's saying. So whenever like I hear that elite Elizabethan Shakespeare style dialogue, I just check out. I just
Okay,
don't get
that's
it.
fair. That's fair. I get that. So, you know what? I'm glad you watched Ambersons. What did you think?
I mean, I love Citizen Kane, and I just didn't like Ambersons.
At all?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I think again visually it was pretty cool. I liked how like the earlier scene. Well, a lot of the movie kind of looked. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but it was like this weird kind of like daguerreotype old timey photo look. And like some of the way he like how he plays the camera and the characters, it had like a very distinct aesthetic to it. I like that. But the story, it's because I think maybe my problem with it was I don't know if do you call Georgie the main character? Is he the main
George? Yeah, George. George
George?
Amberson. George Minifer Amberson.
Yeah,
George
and
Amberson Minifer.
he was just so annoying. And I mean we're not supposed to like him, but it's just I just couldn't get into it.
Okay.
I mean, what do you like? You clearly like it very much. So what do
I
you like
do
about
like it. I like that it sort of creates a world that probably really never did exist. This sort of old world of these parties and these people and this way of life in this town. And then we watch like progress destroy it.
it? Well, I mean, on the macro level, it's progress. On the micro level, it's
Well, and then the
the
family destroys it. The
characters.
characters are like the architect of their own demise. Yeah, I get
Yeah,
that too.
it's kind of
Um,
Shakespearean, actually. I
yeah,
think.
but I think a lot of it's really beautiful. There's that scene where they are like, this is the last party of the town or the Ambersons ever have, and Joseph Cotton and his daughter enter in this party, and it's like they're pushed in by the cold wind, and you see the chandelier blow, and then her dress ruffles, and it's just so pretty. And then there's that ballroom scene where all the characters are moving in and out, and I just think it's beautiful.
Well, I don't disagree there. I think it's very well made. But I think that's Orson Welles' strength is the visual stuff. I think when it comes to some of the plotting and the dialogue, I
We
don't.
also don't know. I don't know specifically what was reshot. They also had 3 different cameramen on this movie, each one with its own, like his own style. So the one who has the most striking visual style, um, they were having problems with him because he took a really long time to set up his shots. And so this movie was going over budget because they were, running behind schedule. So they got a different cameraman, but his shots aren't as sophisticated as the first cameraman. And then the third cameraman, I think that they brought in to do reshoots, it's a hodgepodge. And you can tell like some of the scenes don't have that same quality.
Well, I looked up. You also mentioned how the ending was altered by the studio. So I looked up, and there's no footage of the original ending.
There's no footage of any of the things that, like, there's 30 minutes missing from the movie that RKO destroyed.
Destroyed. Wow.
They destroyed it, yeah.
So I looked up what the original ending was supposed to be, and I think it's supposed to be the ending that's in the book, which is that they don't save George in the hospital, and the father and the daughter are actually like estranged. That's not
I
right.
can't I can't remember the ending of the book. I read it so long ago.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was curious to now find out more about like why the father and daughter became estranged because they seemed like they had a good positive relationship throughout the movie. But in the book, they grow apart.
Yeah, I don't remember. I read it so long ago.
I wonder if that had something to do with if he was like an obsessive inventor. So that took away from their relationship.
We'll never know what was in the movie.
That's certainly true.
Who knows? Maybe if it had been Orson's movie through the whole entire thing, you would have really liked it.
Maybe
it was too many fingers in the pot.
And then he ate the pot.
You know what the thing about it is? It's like, why even mess with it? So they're expecting it not to be a hit, so just leave it alone. Like, then they're meddling with it and still not expecting it to be a hit. So they should have just left it alone in the first place. Because either way, they were like not expecting to make money on it.
Oh, you know, Hollywood's weird. And
Hollywood is so weird.
People want to put their name on things to justify getting paid what they're getting paid, so they meddle. I mean, there's lots of reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, like with Blade Runner, right? The narration that Harrison Ford did drunk, apparently, because nobody wanted it except some executive or the studio.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess this one's I'd stream it. I wouldn't pay for it.
Okay, that's fair. I think if you really are digging Orson Welles, then yeah, definitely stream it, because this is the movie that got away, I guess. The thing that sort of broke his heart, because he didn't get to execute his vision the way he wanted to, and they meddled with it and it hurt him. But if you're just a casual viewer and you kind of have a little bit of interest, then yeah, just wait for it and stream it.
What if you're like a casual viewer like me who liked Citizen Kane, didn't really like this one, didn't like Chimes? Like, I want to watch another Orson Welles movie that I like.
I mean, I don't know, The Lady from Shanghai. But that's just like really bizarre film noir crazy, but it's visually really interesting.
Well, what's up with The Third Man? Because he's in it and Cotton's in it, but he didn't make it.
No,
So how did they get roped? How did both of them get roped into being in that movie?
I don't know. I haven't gotten to that part of the biography.
Oh, right. Wait, who made that one? Somebody famous, right?
Carol Reed.
No, I don't know who that is. But I guess if you want a movie with Orson Welles, that's good. I would recommend that. All right. Should we move on then from Orson Welles? Never to return to him?
Okay.
Unless you read something super interesting in one of those volumes, you're like, Jake, we have to watch this movie.
I think it's kind of interesting that last week we did a Orson Welles. Well, not last week, but previously we did an Orson Welles and Michael Mann, and we're revisiting Orson Welles and Michael Mann this week.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about it, because I was like, oh, let's do another Michael Mann movie, but I didn't even think that we're doing.
And so we did Orson Welles' first movie and then sort of Michael Mann's, magnum opus, like his masterpiece.
Yeah.
And then this week we did Mann's first movie. And what many consider to be Welles' masterpiece that we just weren't digging this week. Right. So why don't you tell me what Heat is about? Thief. Oh, Thief. Thief is about.
It's also a one-syllable word. So Michael Mann made Thief in 1981, and it stars James Caan, Tuesday Weld, Willie Nelson, and Jim Belushi's also in it, and Robert Prosky, who you probably don't know that name, but he's been in so many different movies. And it's about, so James Caan plays a thief who's on the verge of achieving his dream life, which is just like a normal suburban dad life, apparently. And as a professional safecracker, he agrees to do one more job for the Chicago mob, but it turns out that they have other plans for him. So I think this movie is interesting for a few reasons. One is, doesn't it almost feel like a proto Heat?
I don't think so. But I will say that I really like this movie a lot. Man, James Caan, he was something else in this, wasn't he? I mean, he was hard-boiled. I mean, he was just a tough character. And yeah, I can't even believe I've never heard of this movie before.
Yeah, he's really good in it. Tuesday Weld.
Yeah.
Weird name, but she was great in it. I mean, everyone was Jim Belushi, early role for him. He did a good job. And, we like to talk about manhandling. James Caan really manhandled Tuesday Weld when he showed up 2 hours late to their first date.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, I didn't like him as a character
Uh-huh.
at all. Like, I didn't like him. I like that he had an obvious code that he lived by, you know, in a way that he did his business, but I didn't like him.
Yeah, I mean their relationship was uh not very believable, to say
Yeah,
the
Michael
least.
Mann has a woman problem.
I mean, on the first date, he shows her his little vision board. He's like, basically, he's like, I'm gonna buy you a house, I'm gonna buy you a baby, and we're gonna live happily ever after. And she's like, you know what? Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, not believable at all.
Um, but it's, I mean, so this movie is about a thief, obviously, and Heat is about a thief. And then you also have sort of that conflict about attachment versus, well, it's like attachment and failure versus detachment and success in some sense. And in Heat, there's that whole spiel where De Niro and Pacino meet face to face, and Pacino asks him, like, "Did you ever consider doing anything else?" And De Niro's like, "What? Going to baseball games and grilling hot dogs?" But in here, this is what the thief wants. This is his out. So I think these ideas they're in Michael Mann's head all the time. And so I think this is like the first time he got it out, and then I think he got it out again in Heat in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, I see what you're saying. Um, and also he uses Chicago so well in this movie. This is very much a movie also about a place.
Yeah, and I was thinking about like the way he shot it makes Chicago look very kind of grimy, which I mean in
Hmm.
1981 it probably was.
I think all cities were grimy in
Yeah,
1981.
cities in decline.
Hmm.
But yeah, like probably at least half the outdoor scenes, external shots were at night. A
Yeah.
lot of them were by various places on the river with like the crusty bridges. Yeah, it does. And then you've got, the Green Mill features prominently in this movie.
He blows it up.
Yeah, I think isn't that one of the reasons this movie's famous is because he blows up the Green Mill.
Hmm. He blows up a lot of stuff at the end.
And then so you have this kind of gritty. By the way, this movie is called neo noir. We were talking about noir before. So you
Yeah.
have this like gritty, dark, kind of dirty movie, and then at the same time you have this very clean synth soundtrack by Tangerine Dream. And I think that's a really great juxtaposition.
I liked it. I like the soundtrack a lot. But I'm
Yeah.
going to have a controversial take here,
Mm-hmm.
which is I really like these sort of scenes where he was trying to build a domestic life and his interactions with like Tuesday Weld and trying to get the baby and all that more than I like the actual thieving.
I like them both. And with the thieving, the reason I liked them was what we talked about with Heat, because it's like it's very precise and meticulous, and it shows you from step A to step Z how the thieving occurs. There's no cutting corners. They actually show you him doing the work, and I like that.
Yeah. But I didn't find it as compelling as the domestic scenes.
The other thing that I was expecting in this movie, now I'd seen it before, so I kind of knew the ending, but since it's like 1981, don't you feel that it should have had a more of a downer ending?
I thought he was going to die. I legitimately thought he was going to die in the shootout at the end.
Yeah, I think he should have died.
Because he's already blown up everything. What's the point of
Okay.
living?
The relationship's ridiculous. Like that end is also ridiculous, where he just destroys everything in his life. Granted, I think it looked great, but then he's like, "Don't pack any clothes, leave with money." And then he just burns their house down. He burns his car dealership. He just destroys everything. Like,
He blows up the Green Mill. And I go, why blow up the bar? Just because you hung out there? Like, that's not cool.
yeah, I mean, I was trying to figure out why he was doing it, and it seemed like he's like, you know what? I'm never gonna get the dream I want, so I'm just gonna destroy everything and give up
That was my take as well.
after I kill all my enemies.
That's what I thought that he was doing. But then that was setting me up for him to die.
Right, because then it looks like he lives, and then you wonder, okay, so what is he gonna do now? It's like, oh shit, why did I burn everything down?
And why did I send her away with the baby? Because I didn't die.
Yeah,
It
it's a
didn't make
little
any
weird.
sense at the end. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is Michael Mann doing that Michael Mann thing that
Or is it meddling? Studio meddling. Wait, what's the Michael Mann thing that he does?
You know, the sort of style. It was really stylized, the stylized extra violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, we didn't really need it, but it looked cool. Yeah, it did look cool. When he blew up the Green Mill, it looked cool.
Yeah, nothing to lose. Maybe that was it. He was like working himself up. I got nothing to lose, so I'm gonna go at him hard.
Maybe because remember he says in prison you gotta get yourself in the mindset where you're not afraid to die, basically.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what he was getting himself back into that zone. But he also got shot like twice, so he should have died.
Yeah. Well, maybe he bled out.
Maybe, maybe he walked off to die, like in like the old cowboy, like
Yeah,
Shane. Maybe that's what it was like.
that could be true.
Mm-hmm.
But you just reminded me. So that the diner scene, I mean, it's like, it's weird, like we just talked about, but it's also got some really great parts. Like the fact that they're basically like comparing their rape stories. Because she used
Oh
to,
yeah, that's right.
so she used to be with this drug dealer in Bogota, Colombia, and then the drug dealer died, I think, or got arrested. And so she was like working the streets for a while, and she was like, "Well, you know, things happen." And then he tells the story about how he was gang raped by like 10 guys in prison.
No, he says he was going to be, but he beat up the guy and killed him. Remember?
Yeah, but what happened after that? Then they got him in the shower or something.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Well, he killed the guy, but there's something. Yeah, he
Okay. Okay. I thought he'd maneuvered himself out of that situation.
he killed the mastermind of the leader of the gang rapers, but I think he still got stuff happened to him.
Okay.
But
Well,
that's
he
what
was
he
in
talked about, the
prison.
mindset.
Yeah, he talked about prison. He was in prison for 11 years, so that's a long time.
Right. And so it also, I think, kind of speaks a little bit to his outlook, because he went in when he was about 20, came on when he was about 30. So he's, you know, he's got sort of stunted development. He never really matured outside of prison. So I think he has almost like a childlike outlook on life.
Well, he pulls out a piece of paper like you said, his dream board, and
Yeah.
with cutouts in it, and it's like he thinks that if he can get every single one of those things, that's going to make him happy, I guess. That's a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
But he goes about in a really weird way, like trying to buy it.
And you know, and now
He
that I
doesn't
think
let it he doesn't let it happen organically.
he's a child, that's how he understands the world. And if you think about a child, like a child gets upset, they break all their toys in a rage. Maybe that's why he's like burning everything. Right? He's
Maybe.
still a man child. A couple other things I noticed was this was produced by Jerry Bruckheimer.
I did too. I noticed that too. And this movie and The Silent Partner are the best Jerry Bruckheimer movies ever.
Well, he also produced The Rock, which I think is up there. And I think he also produced Days of Thunder, which I love. But yeah, I mean, he's produced some really good movies. It's also the first role for local favorite Dennis Farina. Did you notice
Oh,
him?
is it really?
Yeah, he's
Was he one of the thugs, right?
yeah, he was. I don't even know if he had any dialogue in it. He was more of just like a silent heavy. I think I really like this movie. I think the soundtrack is as important as pretty much everything else in it. So for me, it's a definite renter.
I watched it for free on Cinemax.
So did I.
I think it's a renter just because James Caan is amazing. Like hands down, the best part of the movie is his performance.
Yeah, he's really good. So fun story about James Caan. In William Goldman's, what is it, diary, or what is it called? His first book about.
Oh, the one about Hollywood?
Yeah. He talks about the making of, have you read that? I know I've asked you that.
No, I have not, but I know I'm familiar with it. Should I read it?
You should read it. And the sequel. They're both great. But he talks about making Misery. And so they were casting the role of, what's her name?
Annie Wilkes?
Annie Wilkes. And then what's the name of the writer? Shelton?
Paul Sheldon.
Right. So they were trying to cast these two. And with Annie Wilkes, they wanted a great actress, but that hadn't been on screen before, because they felt like if they got someone like Meryl Streep or something, she would bring all this like associated baggage of all her previous roles. So they found this stage actress, Kathy Bates, who'd never been in anything on film before and who was just really good. So that's how they got her. But for the Paul Shelton role, apparently they talked to like Richard Gere, Warren Beatty, all these like big names. And then I forget why, but they like at this point James Caan was kind of like nobody wanted to hire him because he had a huge cocaine problem in the 80s. And so he hadn't acted in a while. And somehow I guess they got in touch with him, and he like basically like he guaranteed that he would be completely sober and he was over it. So they ended up casting him. And I think one of the reasons that some of the bigger stars turned it down was because that character was very vulnerable, and he's bedridden the whole time, and she ends up hobbling him. And a lot of these like sexy big Hollywood superstars didn't want to play a role like that.
It's so weird to me because wouldn't you want to play interesting, different characters?
I mean, yes, but I think it also depends on like where in your career you are. And if I think for some actors, they feel like it'll derail their career.
Really? I would think that would be, I don't know. I don't know. I think that's where you separate the wheat from the chaff when it comes to actors. The ones who do things because they're curious and they want to expand their range and act, and then the ones that are just sort of personas.
I mean, I think that's true to some extent, but maybe some people just like making a certain type of movies. Like it's fun for them. I don't know. Maybe Tom Cruise just likes making action movies and doing crazy stunts.
But he didn't always do that. Like A Few Good Men's not an action movie.
Right, or Born on the 4th of July.
Or Eyes Wide Shut. He doesn't make those kinds of movies anymore, though.
Yeah.
He just does like actioners right now.
Or Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder, yeah.
So I'm looking at Michael Mann's filmography, and I think I've seen almost all his movies, but I've never seen Last of the Mohicans. Have you seen that?
Oh my God! You've never seen Last of the Mohicans?
So I was going to ask you if you've seen it, if I should watch it.
Yes.
All right. Then that's going to be our movie for next time.
I'm sorry. I got like really,
all right.
I was really shocked by that.
Starring Daniel Day-Lewis. All right.
And when you watch it, I'm going to tell you now, my mom also loves that movie. And when you watch it, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I can see why her action-loving mom likes this movie.
All right. So that, and then what do you want to watch?
I'm going to pick Peggy Sue Got Married.
Man, I haven't seen that since I was like a tween. We'll see how I react to it as an adult. This is Jake.
And this is Sydney.
And you've been listening to Two for the Matinee.
Join us next week when we hit the trifecta with Michael Mann and watch Last of the Mohicans and a Coppola comedy, Peggy Sue Got Married.
Don't be a thief. Unless it's worth it.
Or do, if you're good at it.
Yeah.